So we'll do as our usual and give a few minutes.
Hey, we're on the right page this time. That helps.
Yes, yeah. So you looked for it on the Think channel, and you got it on the Think channel this time.
Let's take it. Let's just double check this before we start getting into things. Make sure we are. Hey, look, there we are. Okay.
Awesome. Well, today we have an awesome opportunity of integrating a professional photographer into our live our Facebook Live event today. And anyway, Ashel Parsons at ashelphoto.com. That's ASHEL photo.com. You'll recognize a lot of her work from all over town. Ashel, how long have you been here in town taking photos?
Oh, man. I mean, I've been here since high school, so it's definitely home. But I've been shooting professionally, oh gosh, 7 to 10 years, but freelance completely for a little over 2 years, about 2.5 years.
Yeah, and we really enjoy partnering with you on different jobs. The work you do is great. And, it's always creative. It's not staged. It's not something that you feel like you're just getting with your backdrop and pose photography. You get a lot of lifestyle shots, and we enjoy that. They seem to do really well on social and on our website. And we got Philip as well here. What's up, Philip? Philip does a lot of social media photography for our clients as well. And so the goal of this Facebook Live is to enable businesses during this time when we're not able to have a lot of people in and out to take the best photos they possibly can. It's kind of a DIY photo session here. We're just going to ask some questions to Ashel and to Philip, and we're going to share in some conversation about how to get the best photos using things we have like like iPhones and just props and stuff that makes it easy to do when we don't have the ability to get professionals around. So anyway, we'll just kind of start off with tell us a little bit about what mistakes you see that are made commonly, Ashel.
Yeah. And kind of touching back on the point, I know a lot of small businesses, can't, well, especially right now, can't have just people come in and take photos, but also probably can't afford like a professional come in and take all the photos that they ever would need, especially for social. Because if you're really wanting to do well on social media, it's like posting consistently. That's really hard to get a professional in to take pictures every single week or whatever. So doing things with your phone, we're so blessed, honestly, to have a camera in our hands at all times. I mean, I use my camera, especially right now, because I don't have a ton of professional jobs going on. I'm using my phone probably just as much, if not more, than my actual camera, because every time I'm going on a walk, like that's just what I bring. It's smaller, it's easier, and honestly, it takes great photos. I'm not, doing anything crazy big with these photos, so the quality of an iPhone is really great. So one of the things I probably notice the most is a few things. One is really simple, but lighting. Lighting in an image, if it's just, we can get into this a little bit more later, but like it's having good light on a product or a person or whatever you're shooting is really beneficial. So like right now I've got the window right here. And so I'm getting this nice light and it's a little bit darker behind me. But if I were to like turn and get like, this, then suddenly all the light is kind of to my side. It just doesn't look as good. So finding that good lighting is really key. Also, being really specific on what your actual focus is or like what your subject is. Every good photo has to have a subject. And so making sure that your subject is what's in focus, but then also that there's not a ton of distracting things behind it. And we can talk a little bit more about that when we get into tips. Another thing is filters. I think a lot of people will just take a photo. They think, oh, that doesn't look very good, and then slap a filter on it.
Yeah, we see that
And
a
then
lot.
suddenly they think it looks better because it just looks different than what they took. So editing is good. I personally think taking a good photo first, and as much as you can control in the photo by when you just first take it, by the way you angle it or the way you have the light on it, is the most important, because unless you're a professional editor, you can't fix a lot of things in post. Again, unless you're professional, which I'm assuming you're not going to be a professional editor if you're just needing these tips. So,
Yeah. And so by the term, you use the term in post. Explain a little bit about what you mean, like in post.
Like editing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of times, my goal when I take a photo is to have the least editing there that I can get. Like I try to take it in like the best light, or not a lot of distracting things, or I just try to angle it so that when I get to my editing, I'm really just touching things up. Like I'm adjusting the exposure if I need to brighten it or darken it just a little, but not a ton. Or I need to add a little bit of contrast, or if I want to add a little bit of saturation or actually desaturate a little bit if it's a little bit too vibrant for my eyes. But those are pretty basic things. I typically edit to keep within a style that I'm just typically shooting in. So like my portraits have a pretty specific editing style to all be pretty similar in their look, versus when I do a little bit more commercial work, I don't really use those, what I think a lot of people would just call filters. It's a little bit more than just a filter. But I don't do as much on more of like a professional, like a commercial shoot, because I'm shooting for a different brand. And so I want to let the brand decide what their photos are going to look like, at least in editing. So if it's
setup,
warmer.
yeah. So setup is going to be key to not have to do any post editing work.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely, I would, especially in basics, which is shooting with an iPhone, because again, you're pretty limited with an iPhone. It's a great phone and it's a great quality of photo, but you're going to be limited because you're not a professional, nor you're a professional editor. So we can talk about editing some, but I won't get a ton into it, because that's a little bit less important than just taking a good image in the beginning. Does that make sense?
Let me hop in real quick, because look, Ashel is far better at this than I am, but I do take a lot of photos for clients, especially ones here in town. I'm not a professional editor, and I've got a bingo card for. Can you fix this in editing? Can you do this? Editing is not like magic. It's not a wonder cure-all to suddenly make everyone look so much better. And you can only do so much to a bad photo to make it look better. A bad photo is always going to be a bad photo. So taking the time to take a good photo should be more of your emphasis than thinking, I'll just fix it afterwards and do this. You can only do so much to a bad image. So the other thing I will note is, don't feel bad if your first picture is not good. It's okay. Like when I shoot stuff, the one I choose is going to be the best one I have. But I may have shot the same exact thing 20 different times with only slight changes to it, just to get it just right, just to get what I think is the best option possible. I do this all the time, and I don't take one photo and done. I'm sure, Ashley, you're the same way. No, it's not like I'm done. It's the best thing I could possibly shoot. You're shooting multiple times of the same thing, because you never know what little thing that you're not catching while you're shooting is going to be off.
Yeah. Like I'm literally going through my camera roll right now. And this, this is literally, I don't know how much you can see that, but it's just a ton of pictures of the same dog. It's just a man's like bottom half of legs, and then a dog, because I was focusing on the dog, but I like the relaxed look of the guy standing next to the dog. Oh, this is really hard. And so I literally have like a full, probably 40 shots of just this dog. And you might think like, well, you didn't move a ton. Well, I did actually move a little bit to get a little bit different angle, but I was also waiting for the dog to do something interesting. So you can see, let's get back to the dog. I've taken so many pictures on my phone right now, because that's really how I've just been entertaining myself. But yeah, so like these, like you can, oh, this is really weird doing it on here. But you can see like the dog keeps moving a little bit. And so just waiting for that dog to either look in the right direction or have, I don't know, lick its lips, like something a little bit more interesting. So just like Philip said, I take a ton of photos. Also, if you saw that arm just reach out, my best friend slash roommate is sitting back there doing her own work.
So the tips that I'm hearing right now, first of all, is lighting, and second of all, is take a number of different photos so that you have some to choose from. What settings are your camera usually on? I mean, I know some of them have where they capture a bunch all at once. What do you usually have your iPhone set at when you're taking?
I don't do burst mode, which is that if you hold it down, it'll burst. The only time I'll do burst mode is if one, I've got a lot of light. So if I'm out in the middle of the day and there's a ton of sunlight, then I will do the burst if like someone is jumping over something or running or doing something really active that it's hard for me to like click it super fast. Then I'll do burst mode and then pick one of those photos in between. Most of the time that's not typical, and I'm assuming for a lot of small businesses they're not going to have a ton of people just running around that they're needing to do burst mode. So there's not really any settings on an iPhone that you can do per se. There is one little tip. Just turn my phone around. So there we go. This is kind of difficult. So if you tap on wherever like you want, like I want to be in focus, if you tap on me and then you go up or down, you can see that it brightens it and darkens it. That's about all you can really do. The only thing I have to say about that, you have to be a little careful, because if you think, oh, I need that to be brighter, and you brighten it up, sometimes it can blow out things. And what blowing out means is it gets so white that it looks really ugly. Like if I tap me and then I go so bright, like that is too much. Like that's way too bright. My face turns just white, and that doesn't look very good. And then going too dark, you can get too dark. So a lot of times your phone really does actually do a really great job at just doing auto. There's sometimes I'll tap and brighten or darken, but most of the time your phone will just do well on auto. But clicking your subject will help it focus on the right thing. Sometimes your phone will start searching for focus in different places. So the closer you are to something and tapping on that person or thing, it doesn't even have to be a person, making sure to tap on what you actually want to be in focus, that really helps. And the closer you are to a subject, then the easier it's going to be in focus. So I'm like really close right now. So I'm going to be really in focus, and back here is going to be really out of focus. But the further I get away from my phone, I will still be in focus, but the more the background will also be in focus.
Okay.
So
I always wondered how that worked, and you got some blurry backgrounds to it. It's neat.
Getting really close will actually help blur that background.
Okay, and I don't know, we were talking yesterday, and Philip, you might jump in here, but we were talking about, Philip, you were going into a restaurant and taking a shot of food, and some of the tips, the do's and don'ts on that. Y'all both had some great advice for restaurants as they take shots or even other product shots. Can you just kind of step through that, Philip, if you want to?
And let me unmute myself. Sorry. Let me start by saying one of the reasons we decided to do this was because I think I see restaurants are the ones who tend to need the most help with this kind of stuff. Because like if your food's really good but your photos are bad, like I have no way of knowing and no inclination to want to try something that doesn't look visibly appealing. Like if my first interaction with your food is a picture of it and it doesn't look very good, I don't really, I'm going to go order something else. So when you're doing food shots, a couple tips to think. First off, as Ashel can talk to, how you set up your shot is really important. Don't have really busy backgrounds. You don't want something that's going to distract from the item that I'm trying to focus on. So try and find a very simple background, whether it's just a blank wall or something that you can at least have at a distance that will blur out so it doesn't seem like there's a lot going on. The busier the background, there's more of a distraction. It takes away from the shot you're taking. Ashel, yes.
Yeah, I completely agree. If you've got stuff, if you're really getting close to the food, like I just said with your phone, the closer you are to the food, the more it's in focus and the more the back is out. So if you've
Mhm.
got a big restaurant and you want to go right up by the window, but the rest of the restaurant is pretty far back, there's nothing close to you, then the back will blur out pretty well. Or
Awesome.
if you don't have that, then get by one of your blank walls or a brick wall or something, or honestly get a poster board and literally just place it behind, because you don't need this huge wide shot of food, like it's pretty
No.
small. So if you want to even get like a wooden board, or I don't know, some whatever your
Mhm.
branding is, like
Yeah.
go with your branding. If you're really bright and airy, then just get a white poster board to go behind it or something like that, and then just place it behind, and then just make sure to crop out where that board falls off.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely cleaning it up. Another thing about food, it depends on the actual food you're shooting and what angle you actually want to focus on getting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So one, if you're taking like a burger, and the burger's like really high, well, you don't want to take a picture looking down at it because then you
Mhm.
just see the bun, but you want to take a picture looking at the side of it. So don't go at like this weird angle, like either get literally right beside it and then
Yeah.
shoot down like looking at it, or if you're taking a picture of like nachos with a whole bunch of dressings on top of whatever, then take a photo from up top and just literally go straight down on it. Be careful of those weird angles, because those like normal eye angles is kind of what I call it. It's like whatever a normal height person will walk up to a table, they all see it at this 45-degree angle. That's what everyone sees. So it's not that interesting. The only way you can make it a little bit interesting is getting on a little bit different angle than not the normal people see it. So that's either going straight down over it or going straight forward, like you're kind of at the table and looking at it. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
And that's all based on what's most interesting about the product or food item being shot, right?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So if you're taking, again, like that picture of a burger and you take it from straight down, well, then it's just going to look like a piece of bread. Like you're not going to actually see
Yeah.
anything. So
You want to showcase what's interesting about that item,
exactly.
and I think the other rule when it comes to that, and I think we've talked about it a bit, is make that your focus. Like you don't need a lot of empty space around it. Don't feel like that. And that's the other thing about getting close. You're going to cut all that empty space out. You don't
Yeah.
want a bunch of excess things that I'll just cut out later. You want to just take, again, to make sure your photo requires as little editing as possible. So make the thing you want, the center of attention. Make it take up. It's so hard to say most of the screen. Like that's the good thing. I'm backwards.
It's
It's
harder.
backwards.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is don't overfill your shots. Okay. I know you want to show 5, 6 food items. It may seem like a great idea. Pick a thing. If you want to
Yeah.
pick a couple of things because they're together, that's fine. But you start getting 3 and more items in a shot, it's just, again, it's kind of like having a busy background. There's too much
Yeah.
going on. Unless this is like a buffet shot where you want a nice down the line of showing everything that's available, or you're showing a catering collection, you want to show that there's a large quantity of something, that's fine. But don't show quantity when you're trying to show quality.
I think
Show
that,
Yeah.
the item that you really want to emphasize on.
I think that's very interesting, Philip, because that also kind of applies to our marketing messages too. When you want your marketing message to come out, you don't want 30 different points all at one time. You want one point that you bring home with a clear, concise message. So that also applies to some photography tips as well. So that's great. Good stuff. Well, let's talk just a little bit more about lighting and flashes. Do you recommend people, do they need their own light set up? Do they want to look at
Um,
light? What's the best way for a person that's trying to do this with their phone or a small business to get this done?
yeah, I rarely use flash on my phone.
Okay.
Sometimes there's honestly you have no option. Like you have zero light to work with and you have to have light, so you flash. I would assume most small businesses won't really run into that problem, because I don't think they're going to be taking photos in the middle of the night with
Mhm.
no light. I mean, even with really bad ceiling light or lamp light or something, you still can work with light that you have. But on window light, I would say 100% go for window light all the time. You don't need extra light. If you want to take like a moodier shot, then honestly, some restaurants and places might be able to do this, not all of them. But if you've got like a lamp on the table or something, then maybe just using that lamp light. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a way to like explain it
Yeah.
without showing.
No, the lamp makes sense. Like you're almost like you're setting up a spotlight on the item, which will darken out everything else around it and put an emphasis on it. Is one way to do it. And I agree. Like sunlight, when you're inside on a nice day, sunlight is your best friend. Your natural light is your best friend because it's going to give you. It's going to make it look the most realistic.
Another tip.
But now I'll say this real quick. Sunlight is not your best friend on outside because you have to be careful. If you're going to shoot outside shots, I would suggest you shoot inside your window. If you're going to shoot outside shots, be very careful. Bright sunny days are your worst enemy. Harsh shadows don't look good.
Agreed.
You want somewhat of a cloud cover because it helps kind of even your lighting out. Otherwise, you get really bright hot spots and really dark spots, which is you can't edit that out very well. It's really really hard. I do it all the time. It's very very difficult. Ashel, I'm sure you can talk to this as well.
I just go into a shade of a tree.
Find a shady spot. So if you're going to be outside, if you have to do it outside, that's fine. Be careful with your lighting. I would suggest being inside and using your window lighting. The sun is your best friend in that situation.
Yeah. Another thing about using window light, a lot of light from the outside is actually a super blue light, like the temperature of the photo. I'm sure you've seen like some photos that look really cool and blue, not like, oh, that's cool, but like the color cool blue. And then others are super warm. So like lamp light. So even back here, this lamp is super, I don't know, super yellow. And so right now, this light coming on the window is really blue compared to that lamp back there. So sometimes that can work well, but sometimes it gets really ugly because you've got these competing temperatures in photos. So I can't tell you how many times I've gone into a place, a commercial business or anything, and literally asked them to turn off all the lights in the room, and then I only use the light from the window. That might be a little weird because you don't want to look like they're closed in the back, but it depends on what you're shooting. Because if you have plenty of light from that window, then turn all the lights off for like a moment while you're just taking photos, while there's no customers in the place, and then just use the light from the window because then you're not mixing temperatures.
Awesome.
So
that's
definitely a key because that is almost impossible to edit out. Even like good editors, that would take a lot of skill to edit that out.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah.
You can when something's green, it's hard to make it not green.
Yes.
You can only move it, change your color tone so much before you're just like, well, he's the Hulk and we're done.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, tell us, do you use any either one of you guys use any apps or anything for social media editing or anything just with your phone to edit some things that may be simple that you can share with our viewers?
I do.
Good. There you go. Because I don't. I've got Lightroom on my
my
machine, but not on my phone. So.
I mean, I actually use quite a few different apps, but for basics, and this is where I hesitate. Like, I'll say what I use, but I hesitate a little only because going back to not wanting to just slap a filter on it. So I'm going to say this with like a little like side note. So I use Visco, or I don't know what you actually call it. This is going to be impossible. Right there, this VSCO. I'll do it again. VSCO. But honestly, you could really use, there's so many out there. This one, I can't remember if you have to pay for it or not. So if you have to pay for it and you don't want to do a lot of editing, like don't worry about it. But the thing about Visco is they have a lot of filters you can buy, which I will use, but then I always tweak after. So a lot of times you can actually, whatever editing app you have, if they have filters, you can place that filter on, but then you can still adjust your own settings. So exposure, contrast, saturation, all that sort of stuff. So I rarely, if ever, put a filter on my photo and then never change anything else. I will always change something else because I don't want it to just be a filtered look. I want it to be what I'm seeing. Like I want it to be my thing. So that's why I hesitate to even bring up an app that has filters, because you can, especially a novice will get so excited that it looks different than what they took, that they'll get like so excited about that, and then they think that's great when honestly that's not what it, like, it doesn't make it better.
Okay.
So honestly, even just on your normal photos, you can go edit and just, adjust your brightness, adjust your contrast, adjust your saturation. Like, there's a few things that you can already adjust. I mean, I could go into detail about editing and like what to adjust, but that might be a little over people's heads. So
hopefully we just have the right setup so we don't have to do a lot of filtering. But if you're
Yes.
stuck with a bad photo and you can't replicate it again, maybe this app would come in handy just to make a few adjustments. So
the main thing I adjust is exposure, so brightness, but I always do little adjustments.
Okay.
Rarely ever do I do drastic adjustments, because that's when you get in danger zones, especially on iPhones. So a little bit of brightness or a little bit of darkness, and then a little bit of contrast or less contrast, and then temperature. Temperature is probably the biggest thing I adjust on my photos. So
Awesome.
like right now, if I took a picture of myself, it would be really blue light, and then kind of wash me out a little bit. So in my editing, I might take the temperature and then up just a little bit of warm, up into the orange or yellow. And I think you can do that on just your normal, like just when you're in your photos. I don't think you have to have an app to do that. Let me check.
Okay. I want to make one note, and it's kind of a thing I have to I try and explain to everybody about really everything. Think about it from the user perspective and the viewer perspective. When you're the one taking the photo, when you're the one inside the business, when you're inside the bubble, as I like to say, you view things internally as opposed to externally. So the same things apply when taking photos. You know what kind of photos you like to see. You know what kind of photos make you stop for a second and look at it, or if it's social media, like it, comment it, want to share on it. So while you may snap a photo and be like, wow, that's really good for me, I've got it. Stop and think, if you're the person that you're showing this to, would you actually like it? Would it make you stop? Would it make you care? Because you can't think about it from, I shot it, so it's important to me. Of course it's important to you. You're the one who took the photo, but you have to think of it from the user perspective. So those filters that seem really cool and easy and fun, we all have time right now to take the time to do it right and to do it well and to do it in a way where you as a user would like and appreciate it. So keep that in mind while you're doing stuff. Try not to just take the easy way out with stuff. Take the time to do it well. Now is the time to take the time and learn how to do this stuff well, which is going to make it easier when things get back to semi-normal. And you are more busy. It's easier to apply those principles and things that you learned during your slow time when you don't have as much time to do them.
Awesome.
And you can also just kind of stock up in your own photos. So like what you're talking about, don't get a whole bunch of food on a table and take one photo. Why not make that 5 posts instead of 1 by separating it and just taking a bunch? There's a lot of stuff with that, like product shots like that. Man, you could take 50 in one day and then just hold them for 2 months and just slowly put them out. I'm sure you guys talk about that.
Well, and that's perfect. And do you guys format them differently for the different platforms, for Facebook and Instagram, web? Do you use different orientations for that?
I do. I'm a big Instagram is square person. I know that Instagram allows more horizontal and vertical images now. I'm still very much a Instagram is square. Don't come at me with your weird shaped photos. Make it square. Don't bother. So I will use square images on Facebook. They like that shape. But I also think on Facebook, more horizontal tends to work better, even and vertical. I don't love vertical on Facebook, even though phone vertical, I don't think they look good on desktop and stuff. So square and horizontal still work even on when you're watching mobile. So that's my opinion, but I don't know, Ashel, what do you think?
Well, I feel like would probably go more into your guys' expertise because you're doing more specific social media marketing. Me, on the other hand, as a photographer, I think the photo is what almost always dictates what I do. There's some photos that truly look good square. Like it just is visually a square, like what you're shooting is a square image. Other things are vertical, like a portrait. To me, especially if you're doing like a full body portrait, to me, those are very vertical because the person is vertical. Or if I'm taking like a picture of a tree or something, like those tend to go towards a vertical to me. Or like a tall burger, that would be a lot more vertical to me than like nachos, which would be, you know, straight above in like a square. Like it truly, to me, I let the scene dictate. Sometimes I'm forced into one or the other.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What's interesting about that is, so, and I know we've been on some shoots together, is that, you know, a lot of times you're right, the subject matter dictates what angle you're going to shoot that at, but then we also have the medium that asks for a certain angle. So it's that balance of, like a website, for instance, if we're building a website, we want a lot of landscape,
horizontal,
you know, horizontal style photos, where a lot of times, you know, it's just, we'll end up, and it's better to be a portrait, and they're harder to use sometimes on web. So it's definitely interesting.
And what I do also, going back to taking a whole bunch of photos, I can't tell you how many times I have taken the exact same photo in 3 different orientations. Or I guess basically 2 different, but like, because I want those options. Like I will put the subject over here and leave a whole bunch of room over here. Then I'll switch it, put the subject over here, leave a whole bunch of room.
Then
I'll put it in the middle, and then I'll do it vertical. Like I will literally, if the subject is still, and I can control all of that, then I will shoot every orientation, and then I can let the person who's actually going to be using the photo do what they want to it.
Yeah. So one thing that I know nothing about, and you guys were kind of hitting on it a little bit, is the rule of thirds. Tell me what that means and how that applies to photography. Again, I just keep hearing that, kind of been a buzzword that pops up now and then. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. Do you want me to go, or do you want to?
Yeah, no, please.
I'm also, there we go. Okay. Rule of thirds. 1, I figured this out on my phone the other day, so I'm going to help you guys. The rule of thirds. Oh, let me see if I can find a piece of paper.
As we see, it's Christmas year round in your house.
I know. Yeah. No, listen, it's a pencil tree, and it's not a Christmas tree because there's not Christmas ornaments on it.
Okay.
It's just a year-round tree.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know what? Right now, do whatever you got to do to feel good and happy, and
exactly.
Bring a little outdoors, indoors. So
we might need Christmas for joy right now. That's just fine.
Okay. I'm drawing. I literally took a piece of mail. This right here is the image, and these lines in the middle. Wow, this is hard. These lines in the middle are what we'd call like kind of just little rules. Basically, it's a grid to help you kind of guide where you're going to put the subject in the photo.
Okay.
So where these lines cross, these little 4 points, are typically where you want to put the point of interest or the subject. And so that means if you're just taking a basic portrait of a person, then their eyes, if it's just their like chest up, the eyes are going to be the point of interest. That is where you want to concentrate on. That is like your main subject. Even though the whole person is the subject, the eyes are the point of interest. If you're taking a whole body shot of someone, then their head pretty much becomes the point of interest because they're further away. Okay. So putting either an eye or whatever in one of these cross points, or you want to put yourself along one of these lines. So if you have a horizon and you're just taking like a beautiful sunset picture or something, you want to put the horizon down at the bottom third and then let the sky, which is the pretty sunset, above all the rest. Don't put the horizon in the dead center. Unless you've got something amazingly interesting also at the bottom, but the probably like just go with the rule. I would just avoid that. So if you have a beautiful field of flowers and just a plain blue sky, well then put your horizon up at the top and then have that little bit of blue sky and then all the pretty flowers below. Does that make sense? Yeah. You're kind of splitting up. Again, there's rules to be broken, but let's stick with the rules. putting things in the dead center is not usually beautiful, is not pleasing. And that doesn't mean, even if you put a person in the center, put their head up at the top so it, lines up right there, and then their body right here. If you put their head in the middle, suddenly you've got all this empty space up here, and it just is lost.
Gotcha.
Another thing to think of with the rule of thirds is having any action in the photograph looking or going into the photograph. So if you've got someone running and you've got them, you want to put them over here and then have them running into the photograph. So instead of putting them over here and then running that way, suddenly if you put them over here and they're running that way or they're directed that way, you've just left out this whole other side of the photograph. Like people's eyes will go to this and automatically see the person running and then subconsciously follow that person off the page. So if you put them over on this side of the photograph and someone hits them with their eyes and then they follow them running, well, now you just led them throughout the whole photo. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
Go ahead.
No,
I was just going to show you on your phone. On your phone, you can actually get it to have the grid lines.
Cool.
I'm trying to see how to best see those like grid lines.
Yeah.
So the way you do that, to just help you visualize the grid while doing it, if you just go to settings, go to settings and then go down to camera and then grid right there and just toggle it on, and then the grid will be there. Of course, when you take the photo, the grid won't be on the photo, but you at least can help you visualize where to put your subject.
That's fantastic. I mean, these tips are great, easy to use, something I think people can take into action right away. And I know we're getting a little bit longer here, but the information is so good. I think that right now people can take this, especially practice, try a bunch of different photos, and while we have this time, become more and more of an expert so you can promote your business the best way, because photos are going to carry a lot of your marketing. We have people talk about, when I want our website, I want it to look like this, I want it to look like that. And one of the very next questions we ask is, what type of photos do you have to support that? Because the design is not going to support it as much as the photos in the real life. So I think that's fantastic. Philip, do you have anything else before we sign off here?
We got one Facebook question, so I figured we might as well let Ashel answer it. From Angela Spears Shaw, says, I usually try to shoot merchandise on live models. Since that's not possible right now, how do I bring flat merchandise to life? And this is something kind of you and I talked about before we got on here. I think clothing especially looks better on model. And I know that there's the big flatscape thing, which is very popular, to lay it all out on a flat board and everything. And that's great. I just, like, for me, I want to, not everything looks great on a hanger or just flattened. Yeah. So what would be your suggestion without model to try and bring something to life without someone to actually wear it?
Yeah. Oh, that's a little difficult because I'm kind of with Philip. I really am drawn to people. So like people, even if it's like a restaurant, like, yes, I want to see your food because that's what's going to, like, oh, that looks good, I want to go there. But people shots, I think, really help draw in people, honestly. And then also kind of helps your just really just show off like your brand and like your personality, the personality of the brand. But since you can't have people, that is a little hard. Definitely flat lays. I would not just take everything on a hanger, like Philip said. That gets real old real fast. Flat lays, and honestly, just looking up flat lays on Google and just looking at other retails and see how they like design their flat lays, because flat lays, I think, actually can be pretty interesting if you're creative with the aesthetics of it. Just throwing something on the floor and taking a photo from looking down on it it's kind of boring. But if you can like put together an outfit and then actually fold them in certain ways, and it's hard to do it right now because it really depends on the clothing or whatever it is. But trying to look at honestly, I can do this all the time, looking at other Instagrams or other, companies who are doing it, I feel like, right.
Yeah.
and have a really nice aesthetic on their Instagram or whatever, and then looking at how they're doing it and then kind of mimicking it. And by copying, you then can find your own voice in that.
Yeah.
That's how I started photography. I copied everything I saw that I thought was good. And then while doing that, I'm learning while I'm doing it. But yeah, it's kind of hard to solve the problem of not being able to use real models if we literally can't be around people.
It kind of reminds me of seeing them on the shelf, like when you're in like retail marketing, you know, like they just put it on a shelf, fold it in a nice way, introduce some objects that may apply to it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can help emphasize brand, you know, if it's health and wellness, you know, do you have, you know, a sports bottle or something that goes with it, or a jump rope, you know, just things that may.
Yeah, exactly. And this might be super picky, but your lighting on that really is going to matter. So finding something super clean, and it doesn't have to be a white background or a white floor, but like, you know, a clean wood floor or clean, I don't know, something, tile or whatever.
Yeah.
And then getting really good light on it. And then making sure if you're going to do a flat lay, making sure your phone is literally straight up and down on it, not at a tiny bit of an angle or this way or that way. Also, when you have that grid on, there is an X. Whenever you put your phone like this with that grid on, there's an X in the middle, and that X, whenever you get it perfectly horizontal to or parallel to the ground, it will actually like lock. Well, it doesn't lock, but it will tell you like, okay, it's perfect right now. Take it.
Awesome.
So I did not know that until I was like trying to take something on the ground and I had my grid on. I was like, oh my goodness, that makes it so easy, because a slight tilt can really be distracting with those. Little tip, but those little slight things can help.
Awesome answer. Awesome. Anything else, Philip, you see?
No other questions there. So we've talked food quite a bit, and obviously we just talked retail, and I'll wrap up on this. You know, there's also the other thing I would think of is service industry. And I realize that right now a lot of people are closed outside of medical and essential businesses. But for those who their product is a service, what kind of photos do you like to see from them?
Again, I really love people, but not just people, not just like portraits. Portraits are great, but you know, I like environmental portraits if you're going to do a portrait. Getting like a nice, pretty white background, sure, but that's kind of boring after a while. Getting like a person actually doing something, or if they are, I don't know, a lawyer or something, and they're actually sitting at their desk with like, you know, all their fun stuff behind them, or I don't know, something a little bit more interactive. But besides like just a standard portrait, definitely interactions or actual emotions. Something that shares not just like here I'm, you know, reaching over the counter to give someone something or whatever, but like some sort of raw emotion. And that does take time. And I mean, honest, that's just kind of a patience thing. You can try and fake it a lot, and I've done that plenty of times too, but it's finding some sort of human element, and it's not just like, oh, a person is human, but waiting for those little interactions of some sort. But that's kind of hard right now because there's not really supposed to be any of that either.
Right.
So I'm trying to think.
Well, so I've got quite a few that have that problem are a service. And my big point is always, especially for social media, like show you and your staff, like they're as valuable to you from a marketing standpoint as the product or service you're trying to sell. Because people are going to interact and react to people they recognize and faces they recognize in your team far more than they are a generic image. Sometimes generic images fit, and that's whatever the content is that you're creating, and that's fine. But if you can take the time to take photos of your team and staff, and these don't have to be professional level. You can take good stuff with your phone of having them just talk and interact. The trick I always try and find is, again, I don't try and set up for that one perfect shot. I get people where I want, and then we talk. We just chat and joke around and let them talk to each other and try and find a way just to get a real smile. You can tell the difference between a posed smile and someone who's coming off of a laugh, who's having a good time. And that's where you just are ready to go. Like you can talk and be ready. And as soon as that happens, just start clicking. And you're going to know the difference between, okay, give me a smile, and someone actually realistically having a moment there, as simple as just laughing or smiling at something that actually made them happy or laugh. So taking the time to do that, being kind of a part of that moment as the photographer is a good way to try and help elicit the reactions that you're looking for, I find.
Yeah, and also, little side note when it comes to composition, to make that interesting. One, if you have just a really strong moment, that I think takes precedent over amazing lighting or amazing composition. If you have a really great moment, that really can work too. But do think about also the composition while that's going on. So like you said, kind of if you have control over where you're standing and watching people interact, I am constantly moving around subjects as they're interacting because I'm trying to find, one, I'm keeping an eye on them and seeing kind of how the conversation's going to see when I think a laugh is going to come or some other emotion other than just like talking lips. And then I'm moving to make sure I don't have any weird thing poking out of someone's head or like super distracting.
Yeah.
I'm like constantly moving. Or if someone has way more of an expression than the other one, then a lot of times if they're like this, I will move so that I am shooting over this one, over this one, shooting at this one. So like you still see their head or the back of the head, and you know what's going on, but you're really focusing on the person who's giving the more reaction.
That's my favorite shot from those is pick a person of focus and make sure the other person's in it. Like side by side, getting them both in there sounds really good. I don't think it's as effective as having a person of focus, and then you can have the back and so on and so forth. So
so still giving context. It's not just like a talking head looking off to no one. Like you still have context of like what they're doing. Also angles. Think of different angles. Sometimes I do this all the time. I will get really low or really high because this angle is just what everyone sees. And so it can get, when nothing super as exciting is going on, I'm like, okay, how can I make this a little more interesting? Then I'll start looking at different angles. And that's when I'll get really low or really high. You have to be careful with really low, especially when you're shooting people. Like that can be a really odd thing, but sometimes it can work, especially the further you are from them. Or getting really high, or getting like, looking down an aisle or something. If you like stand in the middle of an aisle and those like leading the aisle like kind of looks like it's coming out at you, then like just finding different angles, and sometimes those angles will really be bad. Like I've taken so many that I'm like, whoa, that angle did not work, but now I know. So just try different things, especially while you've got, use your dog as a subject to just figure out what you might have to get low with your dog.
Dogs and babies. Everyone loves dogs and babies. So.
Seriously.
Marketing gold. Awesome, guys. Well, we've got these tips, great takeaways from this session. And Ashel, thank you so much for jumping in. That's ASHEL photo.com if you're interested in contacting.
Also, right now on my Instagram, I have 2 Instagrams. I know I'm that weird person, but at my Meet Ashel, it's just MEET Ashel ASHEL at meetashel.com. On Instagram, I'm trying to do a lot more Insta stories and doing like little IGTV, little quick tips of just this sort of stuff we're talking about with just iPhone. So if you want to follow that for the time being.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And we'll have some takeaways in the video on the chat there. But thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you, Philip and Ashel. And we'll do this again soon. And I know there's still so much more you can talk about.
Seriously. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ashel.
See ya.